already know the exit position from my previous tutorials. Now let's explore some more details in two major variations, dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. First though, make sure the knee of the further out foot is pointing upwards. If this sinks in, it can leave a lot of your joints vulnerable. With dorsiflexion, there are two common methods, contacting first with the upper foot or the heel. With both methods, it's important where you first contact the ground with your tucked foot. Let's put your forwardmost foot and your opposite hip on the line of the fall or the direction of your landing twirl. At home, you can simply make a line on your carpet with paint. So if your tucked foot contacts the ground on this side of that line, your fibular head, tibial tuberosity, and your kneecap are more likely to strike the concrete.
Dude, is that permanent?
Yeah, why? This could also cause too much rotation as you exit the roll. If it's on this side of your forwardmost foot, it pops your knee off the ground and protects your ankle from striking. Notice how it's difficult to even reach the ground with your knee in this position. Keeping your foot on the outside of this line will also protect you from potentially landing your other foot on top of your tucked foot, which could get messy at high speeds. So you want to have your knee off the ground, but not so far that it's pointing straight up. This usually means that you don't have the right angle for the soft tissue pathway, often causing people to get persist. So somewhere between knee all the way straight up and all the way down is best depending on your body geometry. The heel method allows you to completely avoid striking the knee, the ankle, slapping the foot down. The tricky part is that it generally necessitates a high knee position. So you might find that your body geometry won't allow this position without getting persist. That's the case for me and about half the people I've tested. So if you're that type, you'll need to come out a little bit more sideways. And while coming out more sideways, heel first could actually be slightly dangerous. If your knee is pointing outwards, the impact could twist your ankle in unnatural positions. And lastly, if you don't tuck tight enough, this leg can end up blocking a smooth transition up to your feet. When contacting upper foot first, it's important that it's not just toes to shin, but slightly to the outside. This protects your ankle and the side of your heel from striking down, and interestingly adds a little bit of absorption right before you roll onto the bottom of your foot, almost as if you're catching the ground. This may seem like an awkward position with a tucked foot, but it doesn't bear a lot of weight seeing how it's in the middle of your base as you exit. One of the downsides is the possibility that your toes may be uncomfortable taking some impact if you're barefoot and you contact too high up on your foot. Also, you may not have the ankle flexibility necessary to avoid striking the toes while barefoot. So similar to the heel first method, you may not have the body geometry to come out sideways enough to make the upper foot method viable. Experiment and find what works for you. The other major variation that some practitioners have made work for them, as well as the way some dancers are taught to roll on hard surfaces, is plantar flexion. I've had dancers tell me that this allows them to move up into various positions for aesthetic purposes, and that they don't risk striking the knee because in fact it's the muscle along the shin, the tibialis anterior, that contacts the hardwood floor, not the knee. Also, a few parkour practitioners have reported that they don't put weight on this leg through the transition, and that there's almost no contact with the tucked leg and the ground altogether, and if there is, not with the knee.
I've observed the same dynamic for foot positioning in regards to the line of the roll with plantar flexion. The further to this side, the more likely your knee is to contact. You'll have to find a good balance to avoid the other extreme of putting your ankle in a vulnerable position.
But note some of the following cons. One, the most notable observation I made while studying plantar flexion is the fact that the foot often slaps down when you increase the speed of the roll, coming out of bigger drops and faster falls. And depending on the length of your femur and the protrusion of your tibial tuberosity, all the strike points on your knee become more vulnerable. Two, this could also cause more weight and impact on the wrist, especially if the tucked leg is being floated. And three, it also seems that through the transition into sprint, depending on the location of the tucked foot, you have to circle around the other foot and risk clipping, as well as a slightly more awkward transition. But you may be able to do a few things like tweak your timing, pronate your ankle, float the tucked leg to make this style work for you. And no matter what method you end up using, make sure you're actively flexing your ankles so you don't slap down the lateral malleolus. I don't have a definitive conclusion for the best exit, but at this time, my tentative conclusion for myself is that I would rather avoid the higher probability of striking my knee and ankle with plantar flexion at higher speeds. This may also be due to the shape of my tibial tuberosity, which sticks out just enough to be a problem for me. My body geometry also doesn't allow me to pull off the heel method for dorsiflexion without getting persist off. So at this time, I feel strongest in the upper foot dorsiflexion exit position. This could mean you're too far on your side, your tucked foot isn't positioned well, your forwardmost foot is offline, as you're standing up out of the roll, you're twisting the wrong direction, or a mix of any of those. However, you may want to be able to do this for some objective. So put your tucked foot on the other side of the line and turn your shoulders to create rotation.